This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
術式順転青術式反転赤挙式紫イエーイ一見ら
My hips don't lie.
Fuck it, we'll do it live?
Fuck it, let's do it live.
We'll do it live, fuck
Okay,
it.
we'll do it live.
Fuck it.
Tonight on Stumbling Down History Road, we're going to be talking about Monster Hunter. I'm Jackson.
I'm D.
And on the phone we got...
Brandon.
Brandon. Say hello to Jeff, Brandon.
Hey, Jeff.
That works too.
Yeah, it's alright. He's still getting used to him. He's a little intimidated. He's intimidating, you know? Look at him.
Yeah. I get it.
So,
What are we covering tonight?
tonight on Stumbling Down History Road, we're going to be talking about Monster Hunter?
Monster Hunter.
Monster Hunter!
Monster Hunter.
So,
I thought it was an alright movie.
oh, don't get me started with
That's
this.
how you're gonna. Oh, now you're starting with violence.
I thought it was an alright movie.
It's really how you're gonna start.
Well, I mean, I don't really think that Mila Djokovic could do any wrong. Have you seen her?
I mean, that's a whole different can of worms in general here we're going into, but
Yeah, it can't do no wrong when your director husband puts you in every damn film.
I mean, just because nepotism exists doesn't mean that she didn't earn those roles somehow.
I mean,
She earned them somehow. She didn't always start off as a nepo.
She wrote a lot of goodwill off Fifth Element. She got
Yeah.
a lot of goodwill off Fifth
Yeah.
Element.
I mean, the first, Resident Evil was okay, and then she had a
Yeah.
couple other,
I'll give her that.
a couple other random niches that were, pretty solid. But,
Blood Rain
Fifth
in-
Element...
Yeah.
No, she wasn't Blood Rain. That was
She
another...
was. No, she was in the
That was
first
another-
one. But that was
The
also,
first one, yep.
Yeah, it was also Uva Bowl. Did he do
Uva
the other
Bowl.
ones?
I don't know.
Whatever, who cares?
I don't know, man.
It took him 3 movies to actually get to Nazi vampires like the Blood Rain was originally based off of, so I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I mean, if it takes you that long to get into something as cool as Nazis, und we, achoo,
Gesundheit. Yes, okay.
Helsing Ultimate. Woo. So,
Anyway,
Monster Hunter. Why are we talking about this video game? Anybody want to chime in?
I mean, I think right now we're presently in the 20th anniversary year, which is one of those big years for them type deal.
Well, I mean, it's Japan,
Yeah.
right? It's Japanese, right?
It's
Yeah.
every 5 years or so they make it the big celebration because 5 is like a lucky number in Japan or whatever. So,
Okay.
yeah, every 10 years, 20 years, 15, 45 years, they tend to.
All right.
Particularly
Talk
if-
to me.
yeah,
Talk to
so-
me. I know nothing about this other than what I know about this.
Seriously?
What?
You're just being silly.
Oh, well, I mean,
I mean,
He's got to
know-
be the audience proxy.
Yeah, kinda. Depends on what we're covering.
has it really been 20 years though?
Yeah, 2004 was the first game.
First worldwide release? Because I thought Japan had it a little bit before us.
Yeah, Japan got it a little bit before us. I think we got ours in 05? It was mid 05, I want to
Yeah.
say, that we got
Fuck.
the first Monster Hunter game.
Fuck.
Typically, that cycle is that Japan gets the first title, and then America gets the culmination or the G version of what Japan has.
Or-
so instead of getting
Or we also get not just the culmination, but a portable version for one specific.
Not
One
necessarily.
specific.
So, kinda. So, basically, we more or less only got the portable stuff until we got the first Monster Hunter on the PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
And then we proceeded
I remember that game being very hard.
It was a pain in the balls, and we'll get into that. Then we proceeded to only get the PlayStation port overs, the Freedom games in America. And we stayed that way until the Wii era.
You
the
had a
third
PSP,
generation.
right?
Yes, I still have it, but it needs repairs. I gotta find a guy to repair it.
Did you have a PSP, Brandon, on the phone?
Yeah, I had a PSP 3000.
I had a 3000. I ended up selling it. I still have a PSP 1001.
That's the smaller one, right?
No, the 3000s were the one when they got slimmer.
Yeah, that's what I meant. The smaller one.
Yeah, the slimmer. They slimmed them down a little bit. But
The
yeah.
1000 was the OG.
Yeah, the 1000, the 1001 was the OG. Yeah.
So it was 1000, 1001, and then 3000.
Well, no. So there's also the 2000s. So the PlayStation series. It was the PSP, right?
Okay.
And then and then they subsequently kind of just slightly improved them for 3 generations. It was the PSP, the first generation.
Yep.
The second generation, 2000.
Okay.
And nobody really just called them. They were just still regular PSPs, technically.
What did it just have, like a better hardware?
A little bit slimmer, a little bit better hardware.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they incorporated a built-in mic at that point.
Okay.
And then the third generation was a bit slimmer, better hardware. They incorporated like the motion, certain other things, but nobody really knew them unless you were really into the PSPs. That there was a difference in generations like that. There was also like the actual PSP Slim, which was a separate thing. There was the one that's
PSP Vita.
the Vita. That's technically its own separate. That's the actual second generation PSP.
Okay.
That's the actual technically what was supposed to be the second generation. Like that was the.
Okay, so it's for like Nintendo talk. It's like going from a Game Boy to a 3DS.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're going to go from like the base PSP 1000 to a Vita, that would be the
Or
equivalent.
Game Boy to Game Boy Advance.
No, it's more like you're closer with the Game Boy to Vita.
Well, I mean, the Game Boy Advance had its own specific cartridges, right?
Yes, the Game Boy Advance had their own cartridges that were separate from the regular Game Boy games. They're the teeny, short ones, whereas the Game Boy ones were the thicker ones.
Thick.
But
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It was like that.
yeah, but in terms of actual hardware and what the PSP can do to what the PSP Vita could do,
Okay.
it is more equivalent to going from the
Like a Game
Game
Boy
Boy
to
to
a...
a-
Gotcha.
yeah, because
Okay,
the PSP Vita was basically almost a tablet. The problem with the Vita, at least when it came to America, what killed it was the fact that they didn't really app support it like an actual what they wanted more app support like a smartphone or a tablet to it, which they weren't going to do. And then on top of that, they really didn't sell it for what it should have been a bit more, which was the fact that you could connect it to your PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4, whatever, and actually mobile game with that from your PlayStation. I mean, technically...
Yeah,
Sorry.
the jailbreaking portion of it, of the PSP family line, was a big selling point as well. Because even my PSP was jailbroken, and the amount of features it could have, the Vita did not have those features.
Yeah, they killed
and
the
they kind of
jailbroken.
tried to retroactively get rid of the jailbrokenness.
I know I tried to have my Vita jailbroken.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
So,
That's another reason why they kind of didn't.
so Brandon, when did you get into Monster Hunter? Was it 04-ish, 05-ish, when it first came to America?
Yeah, 04, 05, got picked up at a GameStop in a yellow sleeve, and
Yellow sleeve.
that was like my first introduction to the series.
The little used packets, the ones that don't have boxes.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's what he meant by that. I was like,
so-
what, did it come with a warning label? I
No.
don't remember that.
No, when they don't
No,
have
no,
boxes,
no,
they put the games
GameStop.
in the little yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like my GameStop always had the weird niche Japanese stuff in the yellow sleeves and a little bin. You had to kind of like search through it. But that's how I got my copy of Monster Hunter. I've been playing since that, and I've just been jumping and following generations and consoles.
So you've been consistent with every one.
As much as I'm able to get a hold of. There are many titles that you can't get access to.
Oh,
Yeah.
there's plenty of titles you can't technically get access to.
Emulators exist.
Well, that's not even that the
Yeah.
problem. The problem is that they're not translated.
Americanized?
Yeah, so you'd have to first off be able to read Japanese or have it translated somehow. I mean, there are people who will do like fan translations and stuff like that, but
It's never as good.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, also the button maps are going to be slightly different because Japanese games are localized differently with the button maps to American games.
Wait, seriously? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
The X and O are swapped on Japanese games and American games.
Huh.
Yeah, in America the X button is usually the yes button, but in Japan it's swapped. The O button is usually
It's because of
Go ahead.
the grading system.
A grading
So
system?
in Japan, in the Japanese education system, a circle is good, X is bad.
I mean, it's kind
So
of the same thing.
that's why
here,
circle is confirmed. Yeah, but it's more prevalent. That's why, like,
Yeah, I
instead
get
of
you.
with America, X marks the spot. They're like, oh
yeah,
no,
yeah.
circle,
X marks the
circle.
spot, cross the box, things like that. I got
Yeah,
you.
no, I
okay,
get-
yeah.
yeah.
Huh. Really? They use circles there. That I didn't know.
Yeah, so for a lot of that's another reason why it takes a little bit longer for like Japanese games and American games to get, because they actually have to sit there, go through the game, and swap all the prompts around. Yeah,
Interesting.
which is weird because a lot of games will also just give you the ability to map out the buttons however the fuck you want. So
I feel like that's a newer thing, though. So,
Yeah.
it's been around. It's been around for a while with certain consoles.
so why is it we are talking about Monster Hunter, other than it being a 20-year-old game? Clearly, it has to have some history.
I mean,
Again, I said it was an okay movie.
it's literally like one of the top 4 games in Japan. Yeah, not even kidding. It's one of the biggest selling franchise, like to the point where they have pop-up events for Monster Hunter where they'll have like giant inflatable monsters, the ships, big full-size like prop weapons you could like sit there and pose and take pictures with and stuff. They'll have like restaurants do like pop-up menus, combinations and stuff. Even then they've collaborated with like almost every other major pop culture thing too. I think at some point, I think the only thing they really haven't done I've seen is a Gundam. No,
No, there are Rathians.
there
So
are
Universal Japan has a Rathian.
There's a Gundam Rathian.
no. I meant like
It's-
in game. I haven't seen any Gundam collaboration stuff. I meant, but I might be wrong because I think Freedom has some stuff. I think Seed got in there at some point.
Yeah. Yep.
Did they do some Seed crossover in game too? Like a
So
beam saber.
Dose had Gundam crossovers. Unite had a crossover. There's been Evangelion crossovers. A lot of their mobile titles have mostly their big crossover stuff.
I remember. So I had a roommate back in Washington that got pretty into Monster Hunter World. That was his starting point on it, and I remember that they had a Witcher crossover because Witcher was becoming big on fucking Netflix.
Yeah.
And shit like
Actually,
that.
it was. Well, that was before the Netflix thing,
Yeah, I think it was
because
to
Witcher
celebrate
3
Witcher 3, but
which is one of the biggest American games of all time.
what, Monster Hunter World?
Witcher 3.
Which three?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest games of all time.
I think it's still GTA, but
I'm talking in terms of overall
Yeah,
series.
yeah.
Yeah, I think GTA. But no, I meant like The Witcher 3, though, is probably one of the
Weird.
most popular games of all time, at least for the PlayStation anyway. It's up there.
I know. So I tried to do some research by somebody by the name of Super Rad, and I want to give him a great shout out.
Oh, I love Super Rat shit. He's
Yeah.
good.
Super
He's
Rad.
good.
Super Rad had a 4.5-hour retrospective that I tried to watch, and a 3.5-hour, almost 4-hour history of that I tried to watch.
Yeah.
I appreciate all of the effort that you do, Super Rad. Thank you. Go outside.
No,
Well,
no, he's not.
Again, he's trying to culminate 20 years of history into
He's not
a
even the
full
worst,
video. So,
Dude, he's not even the worst of that shit though. You gotta look up was it Team Darkside or what? Team Darksiders or whatever. All they do is
Yeah.
just play Monster Hunter for like those like hype clips that you see of like them doing like some super combo and like taking a dragon in charge and shit, or trying to do like no damage runs and things. Yeah, Team
Yeah.
Darksiders.
You know
those
those-
guys are
nuts.
crazy.
But
they're
what,
the equivalent of the Call of Duty kill cam vids. That's what they're
Gotcha.
the equivalent of.
But I just wanted to bring him up because I was watching it, and the history of culmination that I watched came out 3 years ago. This was before Rise, I think is the new one, right? Rise is the latest one?
Well, Rise is still in 5th generation, yes. And then it's not even Rise anymore, it's Rise Sunbreak, which is...
Sure. Rise itself, that
Yes.
generation, because we'll talk about expansions and whatnot. But
Yeah, we'll get into that in a minute.
it was Monster Hunter World was like the best-selling Capcom game of all time, and Monster Hunter is the best-selling Capcom franchise of all time, which, as of 3 years ago, may have been the case, but I don't know if Street Fighter took it over. Because Street Fighter is like huge.
No, yes, especially with the the fighting game community, whatever that.
Yeah, I mean they just did what, Street Fighter 6 recently again.
Yeah, we.
So like,
yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, Capcom is in itself a massive company for video games.
nobody
anyway.
realizes how big they are.
Yeah, like Capcom
Maybe not
covers
nobody.
Capcom covers a lot of like big Japanese properties in terms of video game distribution and that type of stuff. Like they also have like a lot of intellectual property rights for that type of stuff too.
Was it Capcom versus like some manga company that we used to play? We would borrow.
I mean, there was like
Friend Weeboos.
Capcom versus like the Marvel games. There's the Capcom versus what are the other? What's that other one?
Didn't it have like Garo or something like that that you enjoyed?
It didn't.
You know what I'm talking about.
It's Capcom versus Dai something or whatever. I think it was.
Maybe.
I don't know. I'd have to ask our friend.
It was a Capcom
Yeah,
versus.
Fucking.
Did you want?
The fighting game portion of it, I'm a little bit vaguer on. I don't know much about that.
Well, it's because
Capcom is huge for fighting games. Like they are
Yeah.
probably the number 1 company for fighting games.
it's SNK.
period.
That was it. SNK.
Capcom,
Capcom
versus
versus
SNK.
SNK.
Okay.
Yeah, SNK is also a media video game publishing company too. Yeah. So okay. Sorry. Wikipedia. Anyway.
Google
But,
bots.
Yeah, no, I know Capcom Versus had a Monster Hunter character in it too. Yeah, Capcom versus Marvel, one of them had the Monster Hunter character because you end up having to fight the Dalmadora, not the Dalmadora, the one-horned whale, sand whale monster, the Diamoran. The Diamoran. He tries to invade the city, and the Hulk goes and punches him away. I think.
The Hulk.
Genmaron.
Yeah, with the Genmaron.
Genmaron.
Yeah. The Genmaron attacks a city or whatever. So, yeah, they send the Hulk to punch him or whatever the fuck it was in the game.
Isn't there a Rathian Rathalos? We'll discuss that. Assist trophy in fucking Smash Brothers at this point.
Yes.
Because
So this
Monster
bitch has
Hunter-
been getting around.
Again, when you're
Yeah.
one of the biggest franchises in Japan, you're going to get around. And that's not even including the spin-off stuff with the Palicos. Because that...
God, they have spin-offs.
Dude, there's spin-offs
Yeah.
and spin-offs, yeah.
Oh my god.
Like, there's a whole...
I mean, if you
There's a whole farming life video game just for the Palicos that's massively popular. Nothing to do with hunting. Just the farm life stuff using the cats only. And it's a big video game. Yeah.
if you want a Pokemon equivalent, they have Monster Hunter Stories as well.
Yep. Where you breed the monster eggs and you befriend them and you ride on them and use them in a kind of almost, I think it was a...
I want you guys to know that I'm going to be attempting to steal all of the trailers for this because trailers are somewhat fair use.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
Oh, you're going to be trying to splice some trailer footage?
Yeah. So this way some people have some ideas of what's the fuck's
Visualization
going
here.
on. Yeah. Because Lord knows I need help. And if I need help, having played some of the games, you need help.
Well, you used to play the
Freedom
games.
and Freedom Unite and Monster
the
Hunter
PSP.
1 and Monster Hunter World and
Well, you
Monster
only played
Hunter
Monster
Iceborne.
Hunter. When the hell did you play World?
I played it when I was in Washington.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
You played with me a few times.
Alright, yeah. And then they destroyed my video game disc and I couldn't play for a couple years.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Anyway, so, let's start with the basics of what is the Monster Hunter games, I suppose. We've kind of been circling around that.
I want to hear from Brandon.
What is the Monster
Okay. So Monster Hunter is, at the start, a action hunting simulation game. It was created back in 2004. Let's see. I have the first art book that actually goes into staff comments. But
Hey, those things are
Let me get the name of the
not
director.
cheap.
I am sure. I am impressed.
So the series world director and supervisor Fujioka Kaname was the original
Try saying
creator
that 6
of the
times
series.
fast.
I'm not going to. But the initial intention of the game was the idea of a bounty hunting monster game where you play with your friends. Playing with your friends was a big focus. And so the first game that they developed, Monster Hunter 1, came out pretty much alongside the introduction of PlayStation 2's online network function. A little thing that they had a couple titles for, but it was pretty much the first online access for the PS2. So games like Monster Hunter, Resident Evil Survivors, and a few other titles. It wasn't very
Phantasy
prevalent
Star
in the United
games.
States. No, because Phantasy Star was Sega.
Right, yeah,
Oh.
okay, that's...
I
yeah.
don't know what that is, but that's a different topic.
They...
Yeah.
Phantasy Star, it was its own separate thing, now became kind of almost like a sci-fi Monster Hunter rip-ish.
Look, all I know
Kind of.
is that somebody told me if you want to play the best version of Monster Hunter, you play God Eaters.
If you're looking for a particular kind of flavor, that's getting into a later
Who the
thing.
fuck was
But,
this?
yeah.
Or did you just pull that out your ass and used a Monster Hunter-esque game that you know?
Yeah.
You pulled that out your ass.
There's a lot of
There's a
there's
lot of
like,
Monster Hunter
cousins
games.
and siblings. Yeah. So
So-
the first game came out PS2.
We'll let them
I'll do
cook.
the first one.
Yeah, we'll let them cook.
I'll do the first one. So first game came out, and really next to no fanfare in America. It came in. You kind of had to pick it up if you heard about it or you had your friends talk about it. And it was a rough game.
Fun fact, I first found out about Monster Hunter through the Game Informer magazines. And like when it was first like this will be coming out eventually was what the Game Informer said. And I'm like, all right, whenever this game comes out, I want it. And then when I found out it was coming out, it came out around what was happening to me whatever year I was birthday. So I got it for my birthday that year along with the Strat Guide. Yeah. In fact,
Yeah.
yeah. So whenever it
nice.
was first released in America, that's how I
04,
got it.
05, somewhere around there.
Yeah, so May of 05 was when I first... Yeah, sorry. Anyway, carrying on.
No, that's fine. Yeah, so the game's primary focus was you were a hunter, effectively somebody who was hired on by the guild in that setting, to go to a village and help out the village with problems, ranging from, oh God, the monsters are eating my crops, save the farmland, to, hey, we have this big problem causing us issues. And so it would gradually increase in difficulty, starting from you're collecting herbs to kind of teach you the basics of the game, to
Now,
fighting the flagship monsters.
now would you call
Yeah.
Monster Hunter an RPG?
Yes and
No.
no.
So I got a no from you and a yes from you?
Well, a yes and a no for me. It is technically an action game first. However, there are some RPG elements to it, especially now in the newer games.
And
But
you're
it
just
is
a flat
technically
no?
not an RPG game. No.
So I will say no because a big element differentiating it from other typical RPGs is that you never increase the strength of your hunter. Your hunter throughout the whole games until more recently, as he mentioned, your hunter never gets stronger. You start with 100 health, 100 stamina, and that's it. But what gets stronger is your items, your range of items, and your equipment and weapons. And that was the whole cycle. You start off with your basic sword and shield, some potions you got in your chest, and you hunt, you gather, and you collect these items to increase the strength of your equipment.
I would
that's
argue that some
when it goes back-
I would argue that some RPGs follow that same lineage.
Yeah, but again, one of the
But
bigger...
as well, with other RPGs, there was no decision making. There was no like, oh, I need to talk to the king and make sure I save the princess. There was none of that. It was you're going out, you hunt, you come back, rinse, wash, repeat.
A lot of rinsing, washing, and repeating,
Yes.
from what I remember.
Oh, yes.
A lot.
So, I mean...
I-
Yeah,
I want to do a little plug at a later point. Go
So
ahead.
I think what a lot of the things is the RPG question falls into like because a lot of people really kind of know RPGs through what would be more just even specifically the JRPG system.
So like a Final Fantasy?
Yes, the Japanese RPG, like Final Fantasy.
Or like Dungeons and Dragons, which is also an RPG.
Yes. Fire Emblem, those type of games where he said your character themselves, like your character's has a physical base stat that gets higher, your character levels, you choose jobs. The closest you get in Monster Hunter to choosing a job is whether or not you want to poke them, slash them, or shoot them.
You can smash. There's a hammer.
Yeah,
sure.
well, I mean, the hammering too, but
Yeah.
there's no real actual like job system, or is there like a personal leveling like the closest you get to the personal leveling system is your hunter rank, but that doesn't really do anything besides just give you the ability to fight more stuff. And even then, you don't have to worry too much about your actual hunter rank in regular game, because your hunter rank mostly has to do with your online stuff. The offline stuff is kind of its own base thing in of itself that does have kind of sort of ranks, but it's a different story. Plus, on top of that, there is no real party system to it also, aside from the multiplayer system, or in the later games when you get the cats, which, again, starts to kind of lend itself to the RPG element in a little bit, yes, because the cats become massive. I mean, they weren't not big in the first game, sorry.
The game is very equipment and item focused.
Yes.
And with the very early titles, it was very heavily pushed on of like, you need to go get your own stuff.
Gotcha. So it's like
later.
It's like Kingdom Hearts with all of his different keyblades. Got it.
Yeah, in the weapons range, the 14 weapons we have now, I think originally off the top of my head, we only
14
had
types?
like 8.
Yeah, and there's
yes.
actually 17 technically too. There are 3.
If you're talking Frontier.
Yes. Frontier, though, doesn't count anymore. It used to, kind of, sort of, but it doesn't anymore.
Oh, okay, so what the fuck are these 14 types? Because I remember, let's talk about the initial weapons type in number 1.
Okay.
You got the lance, you got the hammer, you got the great sword, you got the sword and shield, you got the light bow gun, you got the heavy bow gun.
And the dual blades.
Dual blades?
They didn't have dual blades in number 1.
Nah,
Yes.
actually, yes.
Well,
However,
it was under the sword and shield. It was specific. It was specific upgrade paths in the sword and shield.
yes, but
so
they
it wasn't
weren't technically a separate weapon.
Okay,
and they
so,
weren't originally in the Japan version, so you are half right. The Japanese original Monster Hunter didn't have dual blades, even from the expansion. The dual blades came in with the American version, although Japan did get them later on with the G rank expansion, which was already out by the time the American one came out anyway. So that's a difference.
All right, so we're at 7.
Yes.
That's it for Monster Hunter.
That's it for Monster Hunter 1 for the first generation.
And then now we're at
It only gets worse.
14, you said.
Yes.
We double it.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus
Yes.
Christ. Last I played, I remember fucking Insect Glaive being a thing.
Yep.
Je
suis monté.
Je suis monté.
Je suis monté.
What is this? I'm in danger.
Means I have taken them out. Because
or
insect
or
glaive.
whenever you see
Because it means
you see that Rathlow's full armor set and Insect Glaive, kick him out.
Fuck that guy.
I don't know what that means.
It means he's going to be doing nothing but spamming aerials to mount the monster. And mounting the monster is a pain in the butt for everybody else unless you know what you're doing. Because you can't hit.
Right.
Once a guy mounts a monster, you can't hit the monster because it'll unmount the person. So you have to sit there and watch the guy do their bullshit mount so you could hopefully maybe get more hits on him. But don't spam mount unless you know unless you're telling your player. Yeah.
So let's jump back to Monster Hunter 1 because you're talking about 4. But with
that's
1,
Gen 4.
God damn it.
1 had a very unique control scheme as well that didn't come back afterwards, which was that attacking was with analog stick. On the right analog stick for the PlayStation, the directions of the stick coordinated to a attack. So you flicking up, flicking back, side to side. This was later removed.
There was actually another game that did
changed
that
the
too.
buttons.
It was a Jet Li game. Yeah, just
I
there's
haven't played
a Jet Li game that was actually done also by the fuck is his name, John Woo. Yeah, John Woo Jet Li game that had the combat system mapped to the control sticks.
Sure, okay, I believe you.
Sorry, it's just like one of the only 2 other games
No,
that's
no, no,
ever
no,
done that.
Yeah, right. It's fucking random.
Sorry, just random tangent there. Anyway, yeah, so that did not come back, along with something from 3rd generation that will come back that hasn't come back, and people want it back, kinda.
Are you talking about underwater diving?
Yes, the swimming mechanic. The problem was it wasn't a bad mechanic. It's just the way it was with the combat and stuff was kind of wonky. So that's what it actually was not bad later on in the
Ultimate,
DS
the G?
Yeah, the DS version that came out for Try. That actually the swimming wasn't as bad on that, but I think that's also partially because it took away the motion sensors because I think that also fucked up the combat a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, the
I can
movement
see
of the
that.
Wii controllers.
We'll get to 3rd gen.
I mean,
Yeah, we're not even
almost
done with the first one yet.
we're almost on the 6th generation. That's coming out this year.
So, yeah, with the first game being primarily equipment-based focused, big emphasis was on managing your money, managing your items, and managing your equipment. Nothing was cheap in this game.
No.
Every item you bought, every equipment you upgraded or purchased was expensive as hell. And it wasn't, the conveniences now were not back then. So if you're like, oh, I feel like I want to do bow gunning. I want to get into the pew pew, the shoot. You got now double the cost of everything.
Mm-hmm. You can't even use your old armor set too. You have to completely change your armor if you want to get into guns.
Quick question.
Yep.
Would you guys call this a From Software game before From Software?
Are you talking about a Soulsborne type game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually made that comparison in the past where I've said that Monster Hunter was kind of the Soulsborne games before Soulsborne games. Not because of the combat or the way they are later or anything, but more so.
Well, I've heard that some of these games are fucking difficult.
Oh yeah, no,
Like,
yeah,
Freedom Ultimate is apparently
Freedom
like,
Unite, yeah.
yeah,
Freedom
it's apparently like fucking hard as shit.
I had to change my playstyle a couple times for Freedom Unite for certain spots just to do it. Like that's how.
And I'm sure using the right analog stick on a game that nobody has ever really like played is incredibly hard to get used to as well.
Oh, it was.
So
I
like
remember.
Monster Hunter.
But even then, though, but because it's not even just the fact that like it's the fact that it also inspired other types of games similar to it, the way that Soulsborne inspires other Soulsborne-esque games to it.
Fucking hard.
Like it's almost now considered. It's almost more of a genre now than it is a actual. Like I mean, it is the franchise in and of itself, but similar to how Soulsborne now is kind of encompassed sort of its own genre of games, so was Monster Hunter before Soulsborne became its own genre, so to say. Which is why we referenced like God Eater, Toyokiden,
I
the
didn't
later
reference
Fantasy
that.
Star. We'll come back to Toyokiden. The later Fantasy Star games, like. So that's just a couple of them.
Would you consider it a Soulsborne-esque type thing, Mr. Brandon, on the phone?
I would not consider it Soulsborne, and that only so in the earlier games. I think somewhere in the middle it touched a little bit on the Soulsborne formula, but my interpretation of the first couple of games until 3U and 4 was more of a hunting simulator. The series really wanted you to get into the ecology. It wanted to get you really into the world and changing your play style to fit monsters. Recently now it's like everyone gets all the toys with what they want. If you're a bow gunner or a hammer main or a greatsword, you have everything. Whereas before it was you have to know, okay, hey, I can't fight the cuckoo with the bone greatsword. I have to use the lance. This monster's good for this weapon, so on and so forth.
Oh, you're one of those guys who says it's
learn
become
more.
easier, aren't you?
It has become easier.
Oh, no, you're not
It's become
wrong.
faster. Yeah, the games have become. All right, I'll save that discourse.
We'll get to that
I have
discourse
my
in a minute.
my strong, old, salty veteran man opinions about this.
Oh, dude,
but-
no, I'm just
yeah.
as old as a veteran. It's just I'm just a bit more relaxed about it. Like, see, my thing is
Monster Hunter 1 items. Let's talk. We'll get into the discourse where you
I
guys
mean-
get to argue later.
We'll get to that later.
dude, there's
We
20.
gotta save that for later.
There's 20 years worth of discourse we could go on. It's fucking
Yeah.
and that's not even getting into like the deep lore stuff because there's deep lore. That's not getting into like the yeah. You know,
So,
just try asking about the equal dragon weapon.
The what?
The equal dragon weapon.
What is an equal dragon weapon?
Technically nothing.
I don't want to know.
It's
He's
now,
pulling out the book.
So at this point, this has become kind of a Monster Hunter community meme. But in the original Monster Hunter book, there was something called the equal dragon weapon. It was so there is actual lore behind the Monster Hunter games because one of the big running jokes is there's no story to the Monster Hunter games, but there is kind of sort of, and the 4th generation really starts to bring in the story stuff. But whatever, we'll get to that in a minute. But one of the old things was there was an ancient civilization in Monster Hunter, and this has kind of been consistent across all the games as like a background lore thing.
Oh, is that where you have like the great hero in the like stand frozen in solid, and you get to steal his sword? That bullshit.
So that sword actually belonged to the original village chief. He used that sword to kill a monobolus, which at the time was a big deal, killing a monobolus. But I miss monobolus. They haven't brought him back since 2nd generation. No, was he in the 3rd generation?
He's the precursor to the Diablos, right?
He's technically a Diablo subspecies, but they pretty much just said, "All right, we only do Diablos now and focus on him," and they haven't really seen the monobolus in forever. But yeah, so the
There it is.
so the equal dragon weapon, as he's showing it off on camera.
Send me these photos so this way I can input them.
But so what that was basically a giant.
Brandon, send me those photos so this way I can input them.
But from lore purposes, the equal dragon weapon was basically a giant, half mechanical, half organic dragon weapon that was made to fight the elder dragons out of the corpses of slain wyverns and dragons. They would kill wyverns and dragons, take their corpses, and put them into the mechanical construct of the equal dragon weapon to fight the Fatalis and other
Lao and
yeah.
Shingaroth and
So it's kind of become
Nergiganti and
So it's kind of become a Monster Hunter community meme that eventually we will see the equal dragon weapon in a game. In fact, when there is that one monster, the Angkor Ka or whatever it was, the
Agni Kai?
That's Avatar. thing.
Agnactor.
The Agnactor, thank you. And it
You don't want to face the Agni Kai?
well, it was this kind of like a mantis monster, but it could make a giant mechanical construct out of like broken parts and stuff. And people thought that was going to be the
That's
equal
what we're talking
dragon.
about.
That's cool.
Yeah, people thought there was going to be the equal dragon weapon, and we're finally going to fight it, but it turns out it wasn't. But yeah, it's like a mantis, but what it does is it spins a bunch of web, and it collects like mechanic parts and weapons and stuff, and makes a mech armor out of it. Some people hated it, some people liked it. But
Yeah. So to
Is
close out,
somebody yelling in the
so to close
background?
out Monster Hunter. For you guys, yeah, not for me.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
it's the barflies.
Fuck them. We do it live.
At least they're not shooting off fireworks.
That's true.
Yeah.
Agni
So,
Kai.
yeah, to wrap up the first one,
Yeah, we'll get back. Yeah, sorry.
as we've already discussed pretty much the high notes of the game. It's very weird for its time. The online
Didn't
was
make much of a
kind of the
splash.
first in its grouping. It did not make much of a splash.
At least in America, anyway.
And,
Sorry. Yeah.
I'm going to have
So-
questions for you guys towards the end of this. Because
Oh.
you guys both seem very intent.
Fun fact: Did you know there's actual in-story canon reason why the village from the original Monster Hunter Online hub is inaccessible now?
I don't remember that.
Yeah, no. Okay, so when they took down the servers for the original Monster Hunter Online, in story, in universe, they actually gave a canon explanation as to why that happened. The only way to get to that village was through a cave system tunnel, and there was a massive cave-in in that system. So now, and they just weren't able to dig it out. So now there's no way to really access that village anymore. At least that's the in-canon universe reason why you can't do Monster Hunter Online anymore like that.
Huh.
I know. Not many video games go ahead and do that, again, which is another reason why Monster Hunter's so
Beloved.
Yeah, but not many video games will actually go out of its way to give you like a canon explanation as to why certain stupid little features are no longer there. And if they do,
Yeah, the friction in the first game caused a lot of great sparks of moments, because like just the memes of Bullfangos, the memes of searching through dung to get cuckoo scales, just the absurdity of missions.
yeah.
A lot of those edges get smoothed over throughout the series.
Very much so, yes.
So you were saying to wrap up Monster Hunter 1?
I mean, that's effectively it. I mean, going over the main talking points. It said you hunt increasingly difficult monsters. You go through starting off just a Velociprey, which is pretty much a Velociraptor, effectively, and you get all the way up to the most difficult mission of all, which is carrying napalm in a volcano, which is the hardest mission in the whole game.
Yeah, one of.
Yeah.
In terms of like the hardest
So he
technical,
would get it.
I think in terms of the hardest technical monster though, which was the final, I think the Kieran was the technical final boss of the game, because that was the final boss of online, which was considered the furthest you could go. I think Lao Shen Lung was considered the final boss of the offline stuff, if memory serves.
Yeah, and that
So
gets into the.
Isn't like Lao Shenlong and some of the other giant, because from what I loosely remember and was able to find, Lao Shenlong and a couple other ones are basically just like siege defense type bullshit, and you're not even really like worried about dying. You're just worried about not stopping him from getting somewhere in time.
For like the Lao Shenlong and the giant monsters, yes, but like the Kieran, it could be just a regular straight.
Yeah. Kieran's a unicorn.
Yeah,
An electric unicorn.
And then, like, once you get to the G rank stuff, which would be like that's when you get the Fatalis. That's when you get the Fatalis introduced as like the true final boss and kind of the overall final boss of the series. Kind.
I wish they would retire him. But yeah.
It's that the Fatalis is its own separate thing. Well,
We'll talk about that at some point. Maybe.
So.
If Super Rad took 4.5 hours or 3.5 hours or however long you want to talk about it, we could talk about it for at least an hour and a half.
I mean, it's really once you get to Generation 2...
Which we're about to get into.
Yeah, where it starts to really fully make its mark. It kind of catches its own stride in the West, and then it really kind of fully takes off, and as like an actual pop culture like icon there. Would be like the second generation.
Yeah, let's get into Generation 2, because I think for me that's all I gotta say about Generation 1.
Yeah, it was clunky. It was definitely different and of its time, but it was a good base work, a very good ground start, so to say, especially for what it was.
It laid the footwork for what's to come, and it laid the footwork for a lot of different monsters.
Oh yeah. So anyway, getting into Generation 2.
Oh yeah, next.
So, Monster Hunter DOS
Transition.
never actually came out in America. Monster Hunter DOS was exclusively for Japanese PlayStation 2, and I think they did eventually put it over to the Xbox. I could be wrong there. And we didn't get that. We ended up getting Monster Hunter Freedom, which was a port of Monster Hunter, the original G rank, Monster Hunter G, put to the PlayStation. That was kind of the bridge between Generation 1 and Generation 2. Then we get a Monster Hunter Freedom 2. Monster Hunter Freedom 2 is our true introduction to the second generation.
That's where we get dual swords.
That's where we introduce... Well, we had dual swords in Generation 1. It's just they technically... Whatever. That's where you introduce the longsword and the bow, which is where it really starts to pop off.
No. You got Gunlance and Hunting Horn.
And longsword and bow.
Mm-hmm.
All four of those came out at once?
Yep. Yeah. Technically, two of those are just kind of offshoots anyway of Lance and Greatsword, because the files for those were originally in-game anyway as a...
Well, you could say a similar thing for bow to bow gun.
Nope. Bows are uniquely originally have almost zero mechanics in common with bow guns. Almost. Aside from the fact that they're ranged. And no, because ammo system is wholly different from coding system. Yeah. So, for all intents and purposes, bow and bow guns are completely separate.
All right. Well, dual sword coded in already.
Dual swords became their own separate branch as of Monster Hunter G. They officially became a separate branch
Which
in
is
Monster
Freedom.
Hunter G, which was Freedom for us. But even then, that's not even technically Monster Hunter G because that was a port. Because the portable games
Is what it is.
The portable games are technically separate games from the console games. They are the same but slightly different, depending on. But the portable games are considered separate games from the console games.
So is
For
Freedom.
the sake of our sanity, let's just stick to the American releases because Japan has 2 to 3 times more the releases of Monster Hunter titles than America does.
Yeah.
So let's stick to America.
So it was Freedom, Freedom 2, Freedom Ultimate, Freedom Unite.
Freedom Unite, yeah.
Okay.
And Freedom Unite was probably like that's where it really hit its big niche like fandom in America.
Gotcha.
Would be Freedom Unite. Pretty much anybody who's like consider themselves an old veteran hunter now, at least in America, considers themselves a veteran from Freedom Unite. Like
Or earlier.
No, most people will differentiate themselves saying that they're a Gen 1 veteran. Like I differentiate myself by saying I'm a PS2 veteran. Yeah, because I was playing. Yeah, but no, but I didn't fully actually really get into it until Freedom Unite per se. But I was also, I mean, I got into the other ones, but like, I sunk like 400 hours into Freedom Unite.
That's when you went,
Yeah.
yeah, this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life.
Also, Freedom Unite, I saw one person comment when talking about it in a retrospective online. They said Freedom Unite is like the only game where they can be sitting there playing it the entire time going, fuck you, fuck this fucking game, I hate this fucking game, fuck this,
Yeah.
turn it off and immediately go, that's the greatest fucking game ever, I love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the only game where you can hate the entire time playing the game, turn it off and go, this is the best game ever, I love it. I mean, I'm sure it's not the only one, but... You know.
I've also heard that it's the one with the most amount of data.
Yeah.
Initially,
Pretty
for
heavy.
that time, yes. In fact, it was such a big game.
Just
that
period, including the main consoles.
Yes.
Like it was the most expansive.
we'll get into that, but yeah, no, it was such a massive PSP game and stuff that it came with its own. You would have to install some of the data from the game into your memory card to make it run better. Yeah,
It was a requirement.
Yeah, it was like a requirement. Like I took it like well, it doesn't necessarily it wasn't a requirement because I've actually deleted the data. Like I went into the system, deleted the data, and played the game without that data install, and it runs so much. It still runs. You can still play the game fully. It just runs like absolute shit now.
So it's like deleting System 32. Go ahead.
No, because the Lean System 32 bricks it. This just makes it run like ass. It doesn't brick the game.
Yeah.
There's a difference. Although it's a bit less, it's a little less noticeable though than once you get to like the PSP 3000. But if you do playing with the 1000, forget about it.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, 3000 can run a little bit better.
All right, so Freedom, Freedom 2, Freedom Unite. Let's talk portables.
So okay, so
Mostly portables.
when it comes to like the I don't know, whoever here has played with the PSP, it was
I have a pretty small penis.
phenomenal fucking console for its time. It's probably, I still hold it up as maybe the best handheld next to the DS. I think it and the DS are probably the two best handhelds ever. 3DS, I mean, I'm sorry. Because, I mean, it's just the amount of stuff that you could play on. I mean, first off, the game library was ridiculous. There was also the UMD movie library.
It was
they had-
online.
Yeah, there was the online functionality. The later ones brought in like the comic feature where you could actually buy and read like comics. In fact, they had their own dedicated comics made for the PSP system that you can't find anywhere else. Yeah, no, there are published comics made that were made exclusively for the PSP that aren't published anywhere else. So now they're gone. I still have a couple on my saved disc too. Yeah, so I Lost Media I still got a little bit of. I can't use it though because I have an older PSP and you can only watch it on the newer ones, but I still have those saved datas. But yeah, no, there's an entire comic book series published that were only on the PSP. So I don't I guess you could help put that in whatever. Anyway, but yeah, no. Sorry,
It's okay. You're passionate. It's not good. It's good to be passionate.
I mean,
I wish I could be passionate sometimes.
and of course, yeah, like I said, that's not even once you get into like the Monster Hunter S games and stuff too, which were also on the PSP.
Monster Hunter S games.
Yeah, like I said, God's Eater, Toyokiden.
Oh, okay. Esk, not S.
Yeah, as you say, there's like the Soulsborne-esque games.
Yeah. I heard just Monster Hunter S, as in like Monster Hunter G, as opposed to Monster Hunter esque.
Oh, okay. Yeah, whatever. Anyway.
Yeah. That's what I was like, what? Fuck me, man.
Yeah, I would say though now I guess the 3DS would be until now I guess it's surpassed by the Switch even then or the Switch Lite, but whatever. Yeah.
All right, so freedom. Talk to me about freedom.
Okay. So Freedom Unite, we'll just stick to Freedom Unite because it's probably the most ubiquitous, I would say. Yeah, well, whatever. That's what introduced like a lot of like the serious main stuff that like really kind of made Monster Hunter fully what it is. It fully brought in the palicos, it fully brought in the kitchen, it brought in like the sub farming system, it expanded out the weapons roster so it was more complete. It expanded out the online functionality and made that more
Was there jewels in this?
yeah, it brought in like the armor jewels and stuff. It brought in like skills and certain skills and things that weren't there before. Yeah, it rounded out what was the base game into what became more of a whole game. That like the first game, like once you got into like the whole nitty gritty of it, yeah, you could really get into it. But this one made that nitty gritty a little bit less gritty. That you could kind of get into it more of like, all right, I can play this comfortably now as a start. Where the other game was I have to sit there and bury myself into this. Where yeah, sorry. Anyway,
The design, like you said right there, the difference between the ability to sit down and commit to a time and hey, I only have 20 minutes, really changed how the portable games later affected the future titles, because it was now about compactfulness, speed, getting somebody in and out of a hunt as fast as possible. So with Unite, they started introducing a little bit more quality of life convenience features.
Okay.
yeah, and those
To add on to his statement of like people's introduction, yeah, it was the first game that people could really get a hold of and show around. That's how I got all my friends into Monster Hunter, because I gave them the PSP, I gave them the demo. If they had a PSP, I'm like, hey, download the Freedom Unite demo. Their demos have always been great, and this was the first introduction to the general audience that people could download these demos, and they were structured, 3-tiered hunt difficulties with a range of equipment that you can just jump in and hunt.
they also gave
So
you
it really helped.
and they also gave you like a light introduction to the area and how you would be doing it too, because they also gave you most of the village map to go off of and use.
We're
and
gonna
explore.
We're gonna splice in some Capcom trailers, right?
I mean, if I knew how to capture video game play, I would capture and send you some video game play. But again, one, my PSP is shit, so I can't really do it off the PSP. And two, I don't know how to send it from a PlayStation 5 to a computer like that. Otherwise,
I think you
would.
just email it.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'll figure it out. I'll see what I can figure out. Maybe I'll get some.
Like I said, right?
If there's footage of me playing the game, it'll be somewhere. If not, I didn't figure it out, and I'm a bitch when it comes to tech stuff.
It's okay, I just feel like stealing the trailer. What are they gonna do? Copyright claim me again?
Hey, it was the one time, and we knew what we did wrong.
Oh, I know what I did.
Plus, it was a live stream. Does that?
Oh, I know what I did.
Any-
It still counts.
Anyway, but yeah, no, like a lot of the slice of life stuff. Yeah, like it really became like the even just the introduction of the Palico assists in solo hunting was probably what, because first off, they're cats. Everybody just likes cats.
Animals, cute animals.
Yeah, you get a talking cat as your assistant. But on top of that, what that did was it allowed if the cat would either be attacking the monster, dealing some damage for you, tanking the aggro of the monster for you, which helps you, or just off gathering some items and getting stuff for you.
Hey, yo, boss, I heard you want some honey. The mega potions. You want some honey?
Yeah, so it was
more or less, yeah.
Yeah, once the cats really became introduced, that's when it started. That's fully hit stride. And then, like I said, you have like the kitchen and stuff where you have cats preparing your dinner, which now has become, even outside of the community, kind of its own meme of the giant cat making your food and stuff. Yeah, so you're welcome, regular normies, for having cat food, I guess. I don't fucking know. Yeah.
Furries.
No. Monster Hunter has its own degeneracy, and we'll get into that a different time.
Is that Scalies? With the lizards?
Nope. It's the monster. Nope. It's the armor cosplay. Yeah, female Kieran armor.
Not.
You don't even need to play the game
not
to know
here.
Female Kieran armor.
Yeah.
Not here.
Female Nakruga armor.
Not here.
Yeah.
I won't input those right here.
Yeah.
Or here.
Check the links down in the
it's
description
fucking hilarious
below.
though, because male Kieran armor is just silly.
Check the links down in the
It's
description
like female
below.
Kieran armor. Woohoo! Male Kieran armor. What the fuck?
Check the links
Yeah,
down in
it's
the
like,
description below. You'll
it's
see
like looking
our
at-
Pornhub channel.
Something you see off Magic Mike. That's something you see it off of.
Oh yeah, no. Even then, the male armor that also will just display like if you thought like the whole like female armor being sexy thing was like Monster Hunter also does that with male armor too, and even then female armor isn't always sexy too. Sometimes female armor is just straight bulk armor that like looks like actual armor too. The same thing with male armor. It's very, in terms of like how it works, it's almost actually kind of very gender neutral sort of thing. Like, it doesn't really sexualize the character, like the male or female characters, one way or the other. Outside of like, when it does, it kind of almost does it equally. I mean, yeah, it's a bit more heavy towards the women, but like in terms of like character, like yeah, it's almost equal when it comes to that type of stuff.
For Japan being as Japan as it is, it could have been worse.
Yes. So much worse. In fact, the fact that the women aren't like this in the games and are actually have almost, regular body types, like they're not like spilling out of their fucking tops or everything, is also surprising for the game too.
I can't wait to clip this.
No, think about it. Like, how many games of it like where if you choose the female character, they've either got their ass fucking splayed out or they got their tits fucking spalling out everywhere, or they're like low cut.
That would require me to play video games.
But with the Monster Hunter designs, like they're not like fucking giant tits and big asses. They're like almost athletic bodies. Like they're actually normal-esque humans. And oh man, you know what? Here, let's start this.
Oh God, what have we got into?
Okay. I'm so fucking sick and tired of hearing that Monster Hunter weapons being the size they are is unrealistic and ridiculous. Okay?
I was not expecting that.
Wait.
Holy shit.
Wait.
I was not expecting that.
Let me cook. Let me cook with this, okay? Because I'm sick of hearing that, ooh, look at the size of that giant greatsword. No human could wield that. Or look at those giant fucking, the giant hammers and stuff. You just get tossed. You can't pick that up. Okay. First of all, most of those weapons incorporate bone into them, which is significantly less fucking heavy than metal. They're using materials taken from monsters. They're made of bone, fucking teeth, skin. They're not using, like, there's actual weapons that are nothing but a fucking stick with a giant fucking cactus on the end. And yes, I know a giant fucking cactus on the end is probably going to weigh like 50, 60 pounds. I've, sat there and looked at, I've seen a fucking sequoia cactus or whatever the fuck those giant cactus are in real life, whatever. But no, look. First of all, this is a fucking fictional video game. It doesn't have to be real goddamn listic. Alright? Look at Cloud's fucking Buster Sword. He's swinging that thing around with one fucking hand. Nobody's swinging around a great sword with one fucking hand in the initial Monster Hunter games. They're hefting these things around. They're taking time to actually charge up. And first of all, so they're not doing this unrealistically. But then, when you want to get into it, look at the way this game world is set up. They're giant flying fucking monsters. The gravity is going to be different, first of all. Like, you have to take into the fact that the gravity on this planet is going to be different. It's probably a smaller planet, so the gravity is going to be lighter, so these things will be way less. And then you have to take into the fact that these aren't humans like normal humans evolved. These humans evolved from monsters. They evolved from Rajangs. They evolved from the they're not humans like humans evolved. They're humans evolved from monsters.
My man's cooking. My man is
evolved next to other fucking monsters. If you evolve next to a goddamn Rathalos, I best believe you're going to evolve to be able to at least tank one of his fucking hits. If I grew up living next to a Rathalos, and I didn't give birth to a kid that can't tank one of his fucking shots from a tail, then successfully, that's not how fucking evolution works.
My man's cooking. My man is cooking.
So when you put that together, it's not unrealistic to have giant and even then, like, oh, you could use, like, they have the guns and stuff. They have bows and arrows. But it uses ammo.
Do we have a rebuttal?
Like, this isn't Hold on. Like when the spikes and stuff, like some of the spikes and stuff would hurt you, if you're swinging around. But even then, you don't even have to worry about using actual sword forms too. Like, there's no need for proper technique when you're just slashing at a giant fucking meat slab.
Hold on. Brandon, it seems like you want to talk.
Parrying. Sorry.
Well, no, I would like to know where are you even going where people are having this kind of discussion when
Sword
the series
community
is old.
The actual.
Where are you interjecting these times of common days? Sword community. Damn it!
The actual sword and knife community gets into this conversation. These are actual conversations that the hardcore sword and knife and HEMA community will have. I've seen.
This is like a mechanic walking into Gordon Ramsay's kitchen and yelling for no discernible reason.
I mean,
is he the mechanic or is he Gordon?
I would say it would be more of like a refrigerator tech walking into him. But all right. I mean, I'm not
okay
because I'm coming from two communities here. I'm coming from from the actual sword and knife community, like the HEMA community, where we look at all these weapons and actually sit there and say, can we use them in real life and are they usable? Because we want to be able to use them IRL. And then I'm also coming from the Monster Hunter community of shut the fuck up, guys. Enjoy the game. Yeah. You don't need to be swinging around a greatsword IRL because there's no Rathaloses to kill. It'd be cool.
Look,
but
you're making it out of cardboard.
Yeah.
Just go about your day. You're making it out of cardboard. Go about
So.
But yeah, there has been arguments about Monster Hunter weapons being unrealistic and too ridiculous.
Let's just skip past Generation 2, Gen 3, because we don't want to talk about those right now. Yeah. I want to go into probably the most popular game for the world. Monster Hunter World. The one that truly introduced everybody that wasn't an old fucking vet into Monster Hunter. Because nobody played Monster Hunter Tri unless you actually knew what it was. It sold very poorly.
Yeah, sorry about my weird fugue state rant there.
It's fine. Monster Hunter World Gen 4. Let's fucking talk about it.
No, Monster Hunter World's Gen 5.
Fuck off.
And you can tell.
So
there's ways to differentiate. Sorry.
I'd like to throw a little addendum for the times in between. Because one nice thing that the series always does is that whenever Capcom's approaches a publisher like, hey, Nintendo, we want to make a Monster Hunter game for you guys. Every single time they do, they always push new innovation with it. So with Monster Hunter Tri, they introduced the Pro Controller because when they introduced the game to them, like, hey, here's the game on your stupid Wii remote. They're like, oh God, this is awful. This I can't play this. Like, yeah, make a damn controller. And it's the same thing for Rise. Effectively, every time the games get pushed, there's some change somewhere.
Yeah.
So, okay. But yeah, that's one I'll throw in. We'll jump to World.
He's actually entirely right. The systems and the companies will actually go out of their way to accommodate Monster Hunter community because that's how big the game series is, especially in Japan.
Which is, unironically, like a huge fucking portion of gamers.
Yeah.
Like statistically above average.
Yeah. So you want to get into World. Let's get into World.
I feel like that's probably the next logical point to jump to because again, nobody was really playing Try unless they knew Monster Hunter beforehand. Monster Hunter World was the one that fucking a buddy on my boat had never played any Monster Hunter game and was like, I'm in.
Yeah, so, I mean, first of all, it released on the PlayStation 4, which already gave it a big leg because the PlayStation 4 was, it also released on the Steam and the Xbox at the same time. It
I
released
thought it released on PC later.
Actually, no, you're right. It did. It was initially only on Xbox and PlayStation. It came to Steam about a year later because they had some trouble getting it, some porting issues. But they did get it on Steam. It did take them a little bit, but it is on Steam. It's been on Steam. But yeah, it was some porting issues.
Either way,
it's always
doesn't
porting
matter.
issues. Whatever. Anyway, but it being on those two big consoles, first off, made it helped boost it because those were, especially in America, people were gaming more on consoles than they were on portables. Which portables is more of the Japanese market, which we have to get into. The Japanese market prefers portable games more too, which is why the Switch is much bigger there, and why the Switch Monster Hunter games are much bigger. Although I think does the Switch have Monster Hunter World on it now? I think
No.
No, it doesn't. It still doesn't have a World. Okay.
No.
All right. So
It would explode if it tried.
Yeah. So the fact that it was on the big consoles like that was a good start. The second thing that they did was they released it globally at the same time instead of in Japan first only. They successfully really dropped it as a global thing. So now you weren't, and they also opened up the servers globally too. Like you could play with people from Japan on American servers.
Okay.
It wasn't until a little bit later that they introduced the cross-platforming thing, but I think that was a bit more to do with Sony and Xbox than it was more to do with Capcom itself. But yeah, once you got into like the cross-console stuff, that's a whole different story. But we'll save that for console war bullshit, whatever. So now because of those factors, and the fact that it was very much a new, different Monster Hunter game. It was still a Monster Hunter game, but the way it was structurally changed to be...
They had a mounting.
No, mounting went back to Gen 4.
Did it?
Yeah, mounting was Gen 4. And even then they toned down the mounting in Gen 5. Mounting is less prevalent in Gen 5.
They had a quick claw.
The clutch claw, yes. The clutch claw was Gen 5 was a Gen 5 introduction. Yes. That was to help with the verticality that they introduced in Gen 4 with the mounting and stuff, because more vertical motion and mounting and stuff, that was all Gen 4. Then the Gen 5 what Gen 5 introduced was the open map system. It had the clutch claw, but the biggest change that was implemented, that was also probably one of the bigger things that helped make it as popular, was the open map system. They went from small segmented individual map chunks.
That's true.
Where you would run into the map chunk, explore the map chunk. If the monster's kicking your ass, you could run out of the map chunk into a different map chunk.
You would have a little loading screen.
Yeah, there's a little... With World, they got rid of that and introduced a giant map. And that was also, I think, because a lot of people... I really like the full map system. As much as I did liked the usefulness of the segmented maps in terms of being able to flee, I honestly enjoy the full maps better because I do like the immersive being.
It makes logistics.
You could also just get lost exploring the map. I like that. I like getting, I've gotten lost in the Great Forest more than once, trying to figure out where the fuck I am, and found something. I'm like, where the fuck am I? And I had to dig myself out and go completely explore a different area. I mean, yeah, there's some mild limitations, but that's, it's those factors that really kind of brought it to be as big as it was in America, to the West, I would say. But even then, they also did a lot of push marketing behind it. I think it was the first game that got an E3 presentation. Yeah, because I remember seeing it at like it was E3 or one of those big tech shows. That's where they first premiered it, and it was hilarious because I'm watching this, and at first I'm like, "Oh, what's going on here? This is interesting." And then I immediately see the sigil of the guild on the monsters on the sword, on the great sword too. And then I saw the great sword. I'm like, okay, so this is a Monster Hunter game, and I'm like immediately like, okay, this is a Monster Hunter. Everybody else, it took a minute to kick in, where they're like, once they saw the Monster Hunter logo, that's when they started. That's when they started cheering. I saw the guild symbol and the jawbone blade on his back, and I'm like, Monster Hunter. So that's how you know you're a veteran too, because you could tell based off just that little sigil. So,
What do you have to input for us for Monster Hunter World?
sorry.
It's okay.
So with Worlds, to not double dip on what he said, yeah, World was a culmination of design features from previous generations. It was going back to more though you sit down and commit to a mission. Something we didn't bring up, a lot of these missions were 50-minute time limits. So you jump in, you have 50 minutes to do what you need to do, and then you leave. And World introduced a lot more of like repeating features, reasons for you to stay there longer and to do multiple things at the same time. It was really, as well, Capcom's attempt at MMOing Monster Hunter, other than Frontier. But Frontier is somewhere else. It's not a Western thing.
No.
World had a lot of MMO features. They had dailies, they had weeklies. They tried to encourage reasons for you to come back.
I have a quick question. I know with Monster Hunter World, you were able to, like, call in an SOS and request help. Was that 4th gen? Or
No,
was that strictly...
That's 5th gen, actually.
That's
That was 5th gen introduction.
Which I think did help, because it was... So, let's talk a little bit about the single player versus the multiplayer. With single player, you have a baseline for... You have a baseline for the setting of how hard, how much health the monster is supposed to have, how hard they hit, right? And then multiplayer, they have a higher health bar.
Yes.
It is a more difficult quest. More difficult in quotes.
Even then, the health bar, they never...
You don't see a health bar.
They didn't introduce dynamic health bar scaling until the 5th generation. The health bar scaling for multiplayer was set to what would be scaled to about 2.5 players. So you could walk into a mission with online as a solo player and still win.
I just meant that there was a single player health bar and then a multiplayer health bar. And then with 5th gen they did add in the dynamic where they went from, all right, so this is a 1 player, this is a 2 player, this is a greater than 2
3 player, 4 player, yeah. Only up to 4. There's actually story reason for
canonicity.
Yeah, there is a canon explanation in story as to why you only go with 4 also.
I'm sure we'll explain that at some point.
Wait, did you see the CGI Monster Hunter movie they put on Netflix?
I did. It wasn't that bad.
Did you know?
Out of everything, it actually is okay.
Wait. Did you notice something, though? Did you notice why some of those hunters died? Because they went in with 5 hunters. Yeah. They started the hunt with 5 of them, not 4.
The movie's old.
Yeah, it's a little old, but yeah, no. Even in the movie, they go with the... So, in Monster Hunter canon, you only go with 4 hunters because anything over 4 is considered unlucky and somebody will die in the hunt. Yeah. It's also because it's also to try and be a bit more fair to the monsters, too. Partially in terms of... But, yeah, no. What happens was back during... they used to have more hunting party, but any hunting party that was 4 members only would be successful. Anything that was more than 4 members, they'd end up having casualties in the party during the hunt. For luck reasons, they only put it to 4 hunters.
I just like the fact that they had the SOS system where you could request literally anybody from your friends list online or whatnot.
It's not even your friends list. It's global.
Yeah,
once you put out the SOS, it's everybody.
To just be like, hey, guys, help.
Well, that's one of the memes in the community now. It's like if you're having trouble with a hunter, you're having trouble with a monster, you fire off a flare, and 3 Japanese guys will show up and just whoop its ass for you. It's a meme in the community.
Yeah.
And there'll also be some.
It came with its own issues, though.
It did, yes.
Like, just-
Yeah, so from what I heard, as soon as you fired off that flare, the health bar immediately changed to a multiplayer set at the highest rank.
It. So what happens was the health bar did change immediately once you changed the SOS flare, but it wasn't dynamically set until the players came in. But yeah, it did. Especially because of the way I wouldn't say that's more of like I'd say it's more like a game, like an in-game original bug per se, because of just how it was versus like them doing it on purpose. It probably was like when you like it's just something they kind of like they had to iron out. But yeah, the SOS flare initially could have been more of a hindrance at times than it was a helpful feature, depending. But at the end of the day, like I said, when you got 3 fucking crazy high-ranked Japanese guys show up who spend all the time playing Monster Hunter, they just womp its ass for you. And then you got guys who will go ahead and do like a 4 archer run using only scattershot arrows and just proceed to just over the monster. Like, I mean, you know, you also got the guys who will cheese the meta with like the raw damage meta and stuff in that game.
There's a lot of different unique builds because, fuck, is there a lot of different weapons, armor sets, skill sets from armor sets, skill sets from that elemental attributes,
Dude,
elemental attributes, sleep attributes,
the gaming meta is ridiculous.
jewels, not jewels, fucking skill sets, getting from the Palicos, fucking all sorts of stupid bullshit. There is, if you can think of it, a way to adjust things almost effectively. It's nuts.
Kinda, yeah.
Mhm.
Especially in the 5th gen with that stuff, yeah.
Is there anything else that we want to add to 5th gen before we go into new gen?
We're still in 5th gen. We never left 5th gen.
Well, Rise, Daybreak.
Nope, Rise and Daybreak are considered 5th gen.
I just meant, like, is there anything that we want to talk about with Monster Hunter World being the fact that that is the largest?
It's still the biggest game. It has more active players than Rise does. Rise
That's what I
and
said,
Sunbreak
the
does right
largest.
now. Yeah.
Is there anything that we want to add in before
Yeah.
we switch over to the newer, technically, games?
It also introduced the siege system for the first time. That's where you have the Kul of Tyroth, which is the big gold girl monster, and you guys can, everybody in the whole thing can actively go into the hunt. And while there only be 4 players, everybody's still technically hunting the same monster, and you all pool the same reward from that monster beating it. So the more people are hunting the Kul of Tyroth in that online session, the better you get your reward from it.
Gotcha. Brandon, you got anything you want to add to us before we go into the Rise Daybreak?
Yeah, with the multiplayer focus, a lot of the siege components have really required more like a very constant present player base. And recently they've made a callback with a little celebration of like, hey, everyone go back to World and get everybody up to the speed. So as the games have continued on, there have become more and more monsters where you're not really able to hunt anymore unless you have that dedicated party.
Yeah, you especially with like I said, with the online quests, because there is a difference between the online and offline quests.
Which we didn't really talk about.
I mean, we've been touching on it as we go. I mean, I did that whole dynamic health bar thing, whatever. But yeah, no. Once you get into Rise and Sunbreak on the Switch, they are still considered 5th generation games, though. That being said, though,
Do they go back to the not open world, or are they open world as well?
No, they're still open world.
Is that where you get the puppers?
Yes, they were the ones to introduce the what do they call the dogs again?
Palamutes.
Palamutes, thank you. Like it's Palicos, Mutes, whatever. It's play on mutts, whatever.
Yeah.
Puppers.
But yeah. So this is probably where his argument that the games have gotten easier really comes into itself.
Do we want to talk about that real fast?
Yeah, go
I mean,
for it.
I guess this is where we can kind of get into it. Yeah.
Since this is where it comes into, apparently.
So
Yeah.
Let's start with Brandon's argument.
Okay. So if we get into the argument of like difficulty, the games have exponentially given you more throughout the series, given that the series has hindered its design based off the portable, whereas the ability to jump in and jump out, to be done with hunts quickly, has become the bigger priority. Every game henceforth has given you more skills, more ways to fight the monster, with Rise Sunbreak being the most egregious example of all the information is given to you. You are given multiple ways to deal with the problem. With that, though, in turn, the monsters get faster, they hit harder, and they do more before they stop.
They also have a higher AOE, more tend to go for AOE attacks as opposed to individual attacks now. But that's a, yeah.
So my general argument is that the game has, from starting as a fantasy hunting sim, has become a hyper arena fighter.
It was never fantasy though. They purposely,
It's-
they were going to make it a fantasy game, but they took out the fantasy magic. They were going to have magic and casting in it.
Fantasy's subjective.
Yeah, but they took out
No.
yeah, whatever. Anyway, sorry. Because
I didn't say Lord of the Rings hunting.
It's fine. Fantasy's subjective.
It's a bit of a subjective thing because the developers
High
will actually-
fantasy, low fantasy, fucking Star Wars is fantasy. I don't care.
Actually,
I actually think it's like Bone Punk. I think I've heard Bone Punk before.
Bone
and I
Punk's
like
not
that
a bad
term.
one.
That's kind of
I
cool.
like Bone Punk.
Instead of steampunk, bone punk. That's kind of cool.
I mean, because they do go, they're technologically wise, they are. I want to say concurrently.
somewhere along steampunky with bones.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
would be. Yeah, they would be like what you would see in a steampunk in terms of technology, but it's using more natural resources instead of. Well, I mean, not saying that steampunk stuff isn't technically natural resources because metal comes from the earth, but you know, it's more using like skins and hides than it is using like wood and cloth or whatever. But yeah, whatever. Anyway, although that's not saying that's not whatever. Carrying on. So
Do you have anything else you want to finish up with before he gets around?
into the easier.
No, that's my thing.
So, yes, the games have, in a sense, become a lot easier, wherein it's far less punishing for new players to pick up the game and get into it and really kind of get into it. But at the same time, mechanically, they have gotten a lot more robust to where it's a meme that the charge bleed is just, you know, a fucking... You know, if you want to do the charge blade, you want to have to become an engineering master to play it because it's just so mechanically in depth. So, I mean, yes, the game, like, yeah, they are essentially kind of becoming easier, but at the same time,
Easy to enter, hard to master?
kind of like.
Is that an argument?
It's also a lot of it, he said, because they give you a lot more. Even then, like, you get a lot more materials, you get a lot more zenny, you get a lot more like,
I do remember having to fucking like redo Rathalos Raytheon fucking quest 9 different times in order to get fucking
Yeah, a lot of it is they got-
Rathalos scale.
a lot of it is they did get rid of a lot of the grind for the equipment, because if you wanted a certain like piece of armor, you wanted a certain sword or whatever, you would have to sit there and actually grind for it. You'd have to master the monster. Like even in World, I had to try and get to the Odogron stuff because I liked the look of the Odogron stuff. I had to fucking fight that guy like 50 goddamn times. And but like now with like the Rake and Sunrise, they took out, even in World they did also take out a lot of that stuff too, because they had part breaks where they would give materials. You had sub quests and stuff where you could get more materials and everything. You have the Palco steal, although getting the Palco to steal materials you actually had to unlock. Usually that's an unlockable feature with the Palcos to steal stuff. I mean, even then, like, it took me forever to figure out how to get the fucking, to get used to the flies, the little glow bugs, the kinsects. No, not the kinsects, for the ones the tracking bugs. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, it took me.
Oh, scoutflies.
Yeah, scoutflies. It took me a minute to figure out how to get used to those things and stuff too, and I actually really like the. So, I mean, yes, Monster Hunter in a sense has become easier, but in a different sense, it's also become a bit of a more difficult game. I mean,
Easy to enter, hard to master.
yes,
I would, I wouldn't even say easy to really to enter unless you have help with you. The in-game
Easier
tutorials
to
are awful.
enter. Easier to enter.
yeah. I mean, I honestly think the best Monster Hunter game mechanically would end up having to be a fusion of generations and world. And I say this as I would like to see the open world feat, like the large open massive maps that you could get lost in of world, and I actually really like the scout fly feature. Because honestly, having to wander around the map multiple times to find the spawn-in point and then paintball, and even then, the spawn-in point thing only happens the first time with most monsters. Like, it's the set spawn-in point. You figure that one out. You get your little cutscene of an introduction, and then once that's over with, in most of the other games, it's like they have like a couple different like spawn-in points, but they'll also be wandering the map. So you could sit there and wander the map, and the monster will be like, I've walked into a map.
It's in Area 7. You're in Area 11. You go to Area 8. It's now in 6. You go to Area 7.
Yeah.
It's in 11.
Yeah.
You go backwards. It's now following you. What?
So, I mean, I think, like, that was an interesting feature. And World still does have that to an extent. But with the way the tracking flies are and stuff, you could also kind of... So that I like. You could see signs of where the monster was, and you could figure out, like... So I like that feature. But I also think they should also bring into... in terms of mechanically with fighting and stuff, because a lot of things people don't like is, like, you know, the wire bugs. Like, a lot of the expanded mechanics besides just the simple hack and slash. A lot of people... they're introduced in Sunrise. They're kind of the Rise Sunbreak version of the Clutch Claw, where you can hit them and you can use them to sling around. You can use them to control the monsters.
Yeah. You can goad them into hit a wall.
Yeah, you can use.
Yeah, you become Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
I think they should bring in the style system of like they had in Generations.
The styles and the arts.
Yeah, the styles and art systems where you can select. Okay, I want to be like a wire bug hunter monster.
Aerials.
I want
Gillbuster.
I want to skew that type of stuff and simply stick to the I want to hit them with my sword and shield, or I want to be focused maybe, or they could do and focus on like I want to use bombs and a status effect type thing.
I want a tank.
Yeah, I think what they should, I think what it would be was keep the open world Monster Hunter World style format, but just also introduce a style and art system to the hunting. So this way, the hunters can kind of pick and choose a bit more of how they want to, like, you know, hack and slash these monsters. I think that would probably be the best way to keep both veterans and new players happy, I would say.
You think that's a compromise?
I mean...
So with the compromise, though, is it's an argument of, like, what game are you looking for? My critique with it is that what it's become from what it was. Like, I personally liked the hunting sim of what it used to be. Yeah, it was obtuse and weird. I liked it. I would have liked if it kept doing that, but it didn't. And so what we have now is good. I am not saying any of it is bad. Rise Sunbreak is a great game. It's just not the thing I'm looking for. And I hope with Wilds, it kind of favors a little bit more with some of the elements that Tri did, some of the elements that World has. Because trying to watch, you could put a clip up here, show a clip of Rise Sunbreak with all of the max settings. It is unbearable to watch. It is flashing and sparking and everything popping off, wire bugs going around, every art skill, switch scroll. You can't look at it.
Yeah, and that being said, though, I still like there are people who love that element, and there are people who really enjoy that. And I say that, like, you should be able to play the game without using those. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, well, you know, once they introduce, like, you can eat in camp or start, you know, change out your equipment or bring items from your main base into the camp and stuff, like, that make the game. I'm like, yeah, but you don't have to use that shit. Like when I play, if I'm in camp, the only thing I'll do is occasionally eat again and just grab the equipment that they give me from the blue box. I don't really go in there and change my equipment unless I'm like, all right, fuck it, let me just switch to a bow gun because this motherfucker's just not staying on the ground for me or whatever. But even then, that was a very rare thing for me to do. I mostly just used I didn't even really go back to camp. But that was
Camp
my
is
style.
for death.
That was my style of gameplay where I tried to play myself a bit more traditional style from what they gave me. I was just ignoring some of the extra features. Hell, I love the shit out of the
problem with it.
Sorry.
Yeah, the problem with that, and it's not. I'm not saying your play style is wrong, but the fact, like, because these features get exponentially greater and greater, and the degree of how much the player can do, they have to design these monsters around that idea. They have to design the monsters around, like, okay, the player's going to walk in with these palicos, palamutes, buffs, armor buffs, certain skills, switch scroll skills. Maybe they have the spear bugs. So the monsters get exponentially faster, and again, they become hyper. They're so twitchy and they jump around too much. So with your character getting stronger too, with all of these new skills, you don't have to worry about anything. Every weapon now has a counter. Every weapon has a way to deal with everything, rather than playing to the weapon.
Yeah, but that's why I said they should reintroduce the style in our thing where you don't have those counters as much anymore. You could play it as the more traditional hack and slash. I think that would probably be the best way to compromise the game in. As it is now, though, yeah, you can't do that. Or, I mean, you can if you're just trying not to play it mechanically right, but it has definitely become a game more for the age. Like, I could almost say the game has definitely aged with the generations, I would say almost. Like, It is very much went from a millennial game with the first one into now what I would say is like a Gen Alpha game. The game itself changed also with the generations of the people playing the game. So now it has become a game for the kids, I would say.
I would also point the finger at like things like Team Darkside. I love them, but it's that type of community where like a hyper focus on the big numbers, the damage, the speed run. Like we're gonna kill Fatalists in one shot with a great sword.
Or just trying to get like those hype, like, short moments of like the Diablos is charging in, and right as the Diablos is about to connect with you, you hit that perfect
slow motion.
The perfect fucking hammer swing. Yeah, but again, that's like I was saying though, that is also partially the game itself aging to the audience and like the kind of the player. Like, yeah, that's becoming a Gen Alpha game or Gen whatever the fuck Z whatever. Like.
To state where I am with all this, I loved Monster Hunter Tri's weapon bow gun system, and I want it fucking back.
Oh, you liked the okay. I see where you're at. Okay. So
That's
you want
where
wait?
I
Did you want the medium bow gun back, or are you just fine with heavy and swap parts?
I want it all back.
Okay.
I want the stupidness.
Okay.
So that's what I know. I'm not in the popular.
You're one of them.
I'm not
okay.
in the favorite.
You're a rare breed for the Monster Hunter where you like the okay. I can appreciate that.
I loved rapid shotting level 1 poison. Was it effective? No, but it was fun. And that was the thing. It's fun. It's stupid.
No, but it was fun.
Hell, I mean, you could have cheesed the fucking thing and just Kelby bow. No, we don't cheese it with a Kelby bow. Come on, we won.
Yeah, it's like
Kelby slingshot.
I want to rant about that. Like the amount of goddamn good features this series puts out.
And then we'll just abandon.
You are lucky, and they'll fucking abandon. Now, if you're lucky, they'll reintegrate it back. They'll change something, but every game to game to game to game, they always bring in something new. Like, oh, I like this. Next game, gone.
Yeah, you think Game Freak? You think Pokemon's bad with that with like Mega Evolutions?
That's what I bring up. Yeah.
Yeah.
They learned it from Monster Hunter.
I mean, to be fair though, the swimming mechanic was universally kind of hated at first because it was just implemented bad. But like, everybody kind of wants the swimming back. They just have to kind of rebalance. They just have to have rebalanced it. But Capcom is just refusing. Like they're bringing in those fucking weird bird raptor things we could fly now with wilds, instead of bringing in you will be in the air flying around on actual monsters before we go back into the water with this goddamn series. We will be doing.
Well, everybody knows that you can't swim.
We will be dog fighting on the back of fucking dragons. Technically, you've done that too with stories. Technically, you can ride on the back of dragons and fly around in story. Yeah, no, that's a whole separate series too. Two games now, but yeah, stories its own separate thing now too. And like I said, there was the Farming Life Simulator with the Palicos by itself. That was a popular mobile series. Still, I think it still is. I think it's still ongoing. There's like the pinball game spin-offs and stuff like Monster like pachinko machines in Japan. Well, everything gets a pachinko machine in Japan. That's all.
Everything gets pretty sure.
Yeah, everything gets a fucking pachinko machine. Yeah, you want to go into a weird rabbit hole? Go into the pachinko machine rabbit hole.
So it is getting towards the time where I want to end this. So
Fair enough.
I have a couple final questions that I want to ask.
Okay.
It's a couple. Okay. We're going to start off with Brandon answering because it's harder for him to know when we need to shut up than it is for us to know when he...
Fair enough.
So, what is your favorite monster?
Giganox.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
So
And that's including
Giganox-
Elder Dragons, right?
Man, I feel sorry for you because Giganox has been like 2 games only and never seen again.
Yeah, I know. He's better than Kezu. I hate that they keep bringing back Kezu. They should bring back Giganox.
Yeah, I mean,
So, Giganox, bar none, your favorite?
I'm trying to think off the top of my head, like who I like fighting the most. Oh, Zamtrios.
okay. Yeah,
I will include
Yeah.
things maybe if I remember.
yeah, no, Zamtros is a good one. Yeah.
All right, next, your
it.
answer.
My favorite,
Including Elder Dragons.
that's a hard call. Kind of almost want to say the Nargakruga or Zenogre.
Yeah.
Nargakruga or Zenogre, one of the those two. I get it; they're both kind of flagshipy and it's easy to say, but I mean, they're both good, fun fights. I really like the equipment that spawns from both of them and stuff. The designs are very solid and everything. It's just very good, solid. Yeah, they're both very good. Yeah.
I'm gonna say either the Nergigante or the Devil Joe, just because I like the fact that they're fucking badass enough to challenge other, like Elder Dragons and other giant monsters.
Well, the Nergigante is specifically, it eats other Elder Dragons, yes.
Yes, he doesn't always win the fights, as shown in 1 or 2 cutscenes, but its whole shtick is, "Fuck you, I'ma eat ya."
Yeah.
Like that's his whole
He's the
fucking
best
shtick.
designed,
Yeah, he's
in
good.
base world. He's the best designed fight.
Yeah, especially with like the with the regrowth spike mechanic and stuff and the dive bomb. Yeah, because he's the first one that introduces like that AOE instant kill attack. I think for the series, because then the Lunastur and Teostur bring that into with the AOE kills.
Next question. Again, we're starting with Brandon. What is your favorite weapon to use?
Bowgun.
Bowgun. Okay, do you have a preference in light, middle, heavy? Or just...
I like light bowgun. I like the sword and shield with asthma. And I liked the older versions of bowguns because the weapon types had a lot more utility than in recent games. Yeah, I mean, but that's a very long-winded argument of like how that weapon has changed game to game.
Gotcha.
I always jump to bowgun.
Gotcha.
By the way, medium bowgun is a try and try only thing. It didn't even come back in like the tri-port with the 3 ultimate or anything. It was strictly in the Wii try game. Just throwing that out there.
You're up.
My favorite weapon, it's Charge Blade now. Yeah.
Charge Blade now.
Yes. I mean, I love that it's a sword and shield. It's good, block, attack, that type of stuff. But it morphs into just a giant fuck-off axe that does massive stat damage and stuff. And also, you can get then in a world when they introduce the mechanics of like the charge blade, the charging the sword itself, and everything. Yeah, no, it used to be longsword and great sword, but then it became charge blade. I did also switch axe for a little bit, but when it came with the 3rd generation, but I ended up not liking the switch axe mechanically.
Okay.
So I pretty much stick to charge blade now. A lot of people say it's like an easy cheese weapon, but as we've gone into it to actually fully get the master of the mechanics down, it takes a minute to figure out.
I like greatsword, OG greatsword, and the gun lance, because it's it's different enough from a regular lance, but not, and it's kind of tanky, but not.
Yeah.
I tend to like more tanky builds of things.
No, gun lance itself is a very underappreciated weapon, because even the lance themselves are also.
We didn't even talk about all the fucking different types of weapons.
Oh yeah, we could get into that.
We
later.
just talked about the initial 7.
Because the lance is actually a very, very underappreciated weapon, because it has it has the best defense block.
Yes.
It tanks the most amount of damage with the least amount of health taken back from it, and also with the least amount of stamina lost. And on top of that, it deals exclusively pierce damage. And pierce damage goes straight to HP. It doesn't get skewed by defense armor or elemental. So whatever the raw from a lance is almost exclusively going into. I mean, there is also like the certain areas are a little bit more to.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's almost No, I mean, there is some modifiers, but once you poke almost all that raw damage plus elemental is going almost. Again, So again, the lance is a very underappreciated weapon for that.
But we're talking gun lance.
The gun lance, though, brings in like the wave and fire burst and stuff like that, which
is cool.
Yeah.
I'm a charging up my laser.
That being said, though, you have to fucking sharpen that bitch constantly.
Yes, it deals itself sharpness damage. Now, let's talk about the fact that there's 17 different weapons.
It is only 14 now. The other 3 were Frontier exclusives.
All right.
Yeah.
So it is.
We listed off greatsword, sword and shield, lance, bowgun, bowgun 2, dual sword, and hammer.
Yeah.
Let's continue.
So then you get longsword, bow, hunting horn, and
gun lance.
Gun lance, yes.
Next up,
Switch axe, charge blade.
Switch axe and charge blade, and then finally insect glaive.
that's 14 people.
Yes.
What are the Frontier exclusives? Can you guys tell me?
Magnet spike.
What the fuck? Okay.
It's weird. And Tonfas. And
okay, that actually sounds kind of interesting.
What was the other one? I want to say it was.
Looks like Brandon has it.
I mean, technically alchemic from GU, if you want to count that as a weapon.
I mean.
Palico. And Palico.
Yeah, Palico's own technical became kind of because so in the 4th generations with the generation, they did introduce where you could play as the cat by itself for a little bit.
People love cat.
So you could play as your Palico and have like 2 other Palicos with you. In fact, you could even play online as your Palico only.
But that's not what we were talking about with Frontier. But I guess those
No.
technically add.
What was the extra Frontier weapon? I might be wrong. It might have only just been the 2 weapons for Frontier.
So sword and shield makes sense. Lance makes sense. Great sword, big fuck off sword, right? That makes sense. Light bowgun, heavy bowgun, something a little bit more akin to like a little Uzi Vert versus a saw, right? That makes sense. Hammer, big fuck off hammer, makes sense. Dual sword, you got 2 fucking knives, makes sense. Long sword, kind of like a katana. Is that what we're saying?
So
Kind of.
yeah, so the longsword was
Aesthetically, kind of like a katana.
in Japan. It's actually not even called the longsword; they're called the tachi.
Okay. Aesthetically, kind of like a katana
Great
odachi.
sword, longsword, sword and shield, dual blades, hammer, hunting horn, gun lance, switch axe, tonfa, magnet spike, light bowgun, heavy bowgun. Okay. So there was only just the two extra frontier weapons. There was never the third. Okay, my bad.
Hunting horn is basically like a giant fucking pipe,
Yeah.
blowpipe thing.
I mean, there's also ones that are shaped like other instruments too.
Sure, but
whatever.
I mean, it
So
is basically it plays closest to a hammer,
In terms of bonking stuff,
and
yes.
you get to use it to give yourself buffs or your team buffs.
Yes.
Gun lance is a lance with a gun attached to it,
Makes big booms.
kind of.
It's good for explosions.
Bow makes sense. Charge blade. Can somebody explain that one to me?
Well, I was kind of before it. So it's sword and shield. It's a sword and shield, but the shield can attach to the sword to make a giant axe.
Okay. Okay.
So the shield doubles up as a giant axe head and everything, and you attach it and it becomes a big you could fill.
And you bonk.
Well, chop, but yeah.
And then the switch axe. Can you explain that one to me?
So the switch axe is like the greatsword, but it trades away some mobility for more offensive capabilities.
So why is it called an axe?
Well, it starts off.
Because it can transform into an axe. It has two modes like the charge blade.
Okay, so
It has
sword and
and then-
shield into axe and axe into greatsword.
yes.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay, makes sense.
Except it's yeah.
And then insect glaive. I think that's the only one that I missed, right?
Yeah.
Out of the main continuity.
So that's kind of like
It's a glaive, right?
it's kind of like a spear type thing. You spin it around. It actually almost mechanically fights. I mean, in terms of style looking, it almost looks more like a bow staff than it does a.
And there's like insects
spear.
or something somebody mentioned earlier.
Yeah, it has it's called insect glaive because it has what's called a kinsect, and you could use you could shoot like a.
You can
a
use your magic
pheromone.
wand.
You shoot a pheromone from the insect glaive
Yes.
onto the monster, and you send the insect after the monster, and it'll go attack the monster, hurt the monster, but also bring back buff energy from the monster. Like you get a speed buff, an attack buff, and a defense buff from it too, based off where it hits the monster. And then I think you get like a super buff if you get all three buffs.
It's a thin hunting. Yeah, it's a very thin hunting horn, but you can only buff yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Plus, I guess it also brings in the aerial. Like you could, it also gives you a jump attack too, so you can mount monsters. Hence why it became kind of a meme with the mounting thing. But yeah, there's a lot of weird Monster Hunter community memes.
Is there anything else that we're leaving off, or do we want to do a part 2 at some point? I'll leave that up to Brandon first, and then I'll leave it up to the audience about a part 2, where we talk exclusively
two
about
is,
Mila Djokovic.
Please no. I mean, part 2 can be all of the side content, just the sheer degree of side games, portable games, side stories we've kind of mentioned. It could also be us ranting about mechanics or ranting about how things change.
Going into actual
Like
lore.
I said though, we could even get into how it inspired and almost its own its own style of gameplay.
Roguelikes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying how roguelike it inspired its own thing.
Yeah.
Metroidvania style.
Yeah, like how there's like you could say there's a progenitive Metrovania game. There's a progenitive like
Roguelike.
the roguelikes,
The Souls-like.
the Souls-likes, the Resident Evil likes.
FPSs.
Yeah, the FPS style. Yeah, no, it has its own kind of niche
Doom
of
likes.
this is what I hunt monsters, I take pieces from monsters, I use those things to make better weapons for monster.
Yeah, RPGs.
Well, whatever. We'll get to that discussion again later.
So yeah, nothing to finish us off with?
I mean,
No, like it's good cover first.
Any closing arguments? Any closing statements?
Don't go into a hunt with more than 4 hunters. Remember to pet your Poogie to help defeat the desire sensor. And always have a dung pod ready for invaders. This will be good tenants to leave off on.
Like, share, comment, subscribe. 250 shirt giveaway. 500 Pornhub. 1,000 we're force marrying Fody to somebody. 1,001 we're giving away a Humvee Lego thingy.
When we get 10,000, we write a book. I'm just gonna add more stupid shit to
No,
this.
I'm not doing a fucking book.
Come on, we'll make this.
You are writing the book.
Oh, so this is gonna be incoherent rambling then? Yes.
Yes, you will be writing the book.
Nothing but incoherent pop culture ramblings in a vaguely historical sense.
Fuck off, mate.
Oh, come on. You don't think we can make a good comedy book? The unabridged history, stumbling down history.
I hope you guys enjoyed this. It's been an episode. Look forward to next week's where we talk about somebody.
Yeah, the guest we have on chose a very particular topic that is hard to pronounce, so we're gonna have fun with that one.
Yep. Good night, people.
Good night, Evil.
Good night, people.
Like, share, comment, subscribe.
All right.